Hello everyone, it is Reese here, and today we are talking about your research profile. So how do you know what it is, and how can you sort of help to shape it? I'm going to be talking about that and offering some tips and some key outlets that you should focus on to help shape the academic perception of who you are. So the first part of sort of shaping a research profile is to sort of ask yourself two questions really, which is A, and these questions are linked. One is, what would you like your profile to be? And B is, what is it currently? Now, it was a tip that was given to me by an academic that I met at a conference when I was a master's student, who said, essentially, can what you do be summed up in a sentence? So for me, the French horror guy. Yeah. It's very simplistic, but sort of, if you were sort of to ask to summarise yourself, to sort of picture sort of how you would capture what your profile is, what would you come up with? And if you can't answer that, think about it. Think about sort of the things you're doing. Think about the things that you've already done, and ask how can you capture that. And of course, the follow-up is what do you want to be known as, and that is handy because if you have a view, if you're thinking about a profile, you sort of have the ability to curate it and shape it. It's amazing to sort of. It's amazingly easy. Is what I'm going to go with. It's very easy to sort of essentially take steps to sort of put yourself on a pathway to a certain thing. Whereas if you have that sort of focus to it, so sort of think about what you are currently, how you would be defined, how someone could define you if you weren't in the room, and then what language would you like them to use? So what kind of things shape how people know you? Well, really, the key driver, I would say, and not the only one, but the key one, is the activity that you're doing or have already done. So for a lot of people watching this, they would be doing sort of dissertations at undergrad, master's level, will be doing or have done a PhD, and will be sort of planning postdoctoral activity. And the PhD or sort of the highest level dissertation you have is always a firm descriptor, because that is sort of a key bulk of research that will define, especially in sort of earlier career stages, exactly where you are and what you've done. And it's the kind of thing that sort of factors heavily into sort of academic bios, right? Is to sort of say that you are a person at this level who is doing or has done this piece of research. But then there are things analogous to that, things that you can sort of use to supplement or sort of perhaps play with alongside. So things like sort of any conference papers you've done, any conference activity, presentations, and what have you talked about? And along with that, publications, be they book chapters, journal articles, web publications, whatever. And what stuff are you writing about? Are all three of them in the same lines? Are you sort of shaping a niche there? Are you using these to sort of give yourselves other niches as well? There's nothing inherently right or wrong either way. I know my own profile is quite sporadic. If you look at my list of publications and conferences and stuff, there's not an obvious single identity, shall we say. But sort of look at the list of what you have and sort of, again, this is the kind of thing of if you want to shape a particular identity, what conference activity, what publications, what things can you do? Alongside this, sort of what networks are you part of? What networks are you involved with? What scholarly networks? At your institution, at a national level and international level, are there things that you are involved with? And similarly, are there sort of projects, funding bids that you're involved with as well? All these things can help really shape, and many of these things can help essentially define a pathway for a certain period of time. If you're an investigator on a particular funding bid, say, that gives sort of a clear identity, at least for the period of the bid, if not sort of in the long term afterwards. And coupled with this, a kind of sort of what I've called online recognition. So these are spaces that sort of people looking for you will find, and spaces most of which you can sort of essentially take ownership of. So things that are sort of, if you're at an institution, do you have your own web page, or are you part of a web page? If you're part of a cluster, say, or whatever, do you have a profile on there? These are things that you can sort of shape to your own ends, to sort of foreground things that are important for you. Um, it's also the case as well. I know people who have their own websites. Again, you can create that, so if people search your name, it's likely to be something that will come up quite highly. Um, So these are spaces that are sort of immediately in your control, but there are other ones too. So it is incredibly useful as an academic to have an ORCID number. You can sign up for ORCID numbers. These are essentially 16-digit identifiers that sort of link to your articles, your work, etc. And very handy to have. Have a Google Scholar page. Again, you can claim them. You can make them sort of link articles and work that's yours. So if people are on Google Scholar, they can essentially look you up, or sort of they can access you through what you've already done, or through research interest that you've listed. There are other spaces as well, so all of which have their own things. Academia.edu, ResearchGate, Symplectic Elements. I'm going to put an article in the description below. Spaces that you can appear on. And they all have, as I say, advantages, disadvantages. I'm not sort of particularly uplifting any of them. But these are spaces, again, where you can sort of curate and shape the knowledge of your work and sort of the knowledge of your involvement. And if people looking you up find sort of research papers on a particular topic, say, that is sort of the profile that will sort of emerge from that. So you can use these things strategically to your own advantage. Coupled with this, again, sort of talking about the online world, is sort of social media presence. So there is sort of, we're in an online world. And social media can be a useful way of sort of curating your own feeds. So sort of what do you follow? Do you follow networks you're involved with? Do you follow academics who are doing similar research to you? Do you follow your own institution? Do you follow, sort of accounts that are useful and relevant to your work? Do you follow relevant networks? All these things. And then what do you post? Again, sort of you can sort of, are you someone who sort of only posts their own publications, conferences, papers, etc. And that's really useful. That really helps shape this idea. Is it the case that you have a separate account? Do you have your own personal one, which is sort of protected, and then a sort of professional one? It may be the case if you're an institution that there are specific rules on what you can and can't post. It may be the case that there's lots of guidelines to follow. It probably will be the case there's lots of guidelines to follow. But yes, sort of, again, this is another avenue where you can shape your identity. So if someone is looking at you on whatever social media platform you're on, if they see an account that is sort of, I don't know, posting, sharing a lot of stuff on, say, horror literature, and they'll get a sense of you as being involved in that space. So again, that is something that you can curate, and it's a really useful and, again, a free tool, effectively. And lastly is what I've called here promotion and curation. So this is the question of sort of, are there things you can be involved with? Are there events you can be involved with as a speaker, as an organiser? Are there things like, say, podcast series, lecture series? Maybe your local, I don't know, maybe a local institution is running sort of an event and they want sort of a speaker who's relevant. Are there sort of relevant press releases that you can comment on? All these kind of things, again, are very helpful and useful. How do you do these? I mean, events happen or you make them happen. Look at things like anniversaries, look at things like relevant news stories, look at if there are sort of, if you want to move on in sort of the podcast or that sort of space, look at accounts and podcasts and other media that is doing stuff that is linked to you. For press releases and stuff, it is never a bad idea, I think, to get in touch with a sort of, say if you're an institution, an institutional press officer or someone who is sort of in that sort of role, and make them aware that you're someone who is able to comment on certain things, and make them aware that is something that they might be able to come to you. I mean, that's not guaranteeing stuff will happen, but sort of, again, it's a place of sort of showing a willingness to be involved in sort of news stories and news campaigns. I speak from personal experience in that myself and a colleague, Dr. Hannah Straw, we did the Terrifier 2025 conference and sort of got to be involved with sort of news media, press media. We did interviews and stuff. And a lot of that emerged from sort of speaking with an internal press officer who sort of coordinated these things. So it's a fantastic opportunity to sort of gain exposure, to share relevant stories and research in the wider institution. So I think that's something that's worthwhile doing if those opportunities arise. But yes, think about those things as well, sort of where you, it's not just you're doing work, which is brilliant, but also other areas where you're able to comment, to share expert opinion, to be able to sort of disseminate research in a way that is not perhaps the sort of immediate academic route. So here we go. These were some of my tips, and this is certainly not exclusively everything, but these are things that I would recommend thinking about in terms of being able to shape your own sort of research profile, to shape your own academic profile. There will be many, many other tips, so please do comment below and share them if you have other ideas or things I've missed, because there will certainly be things that I've missed here. Hopefully this is useful. I think this is kind of some information that I wish I'd known myself as an early career researcher, so I'm sharing this in the hope that it will be useful to others out there. If there are other videos you would like me to make, please do comment below. I want to make the sort of stuff that you guys want to see, so let me know. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, ring the bell so you know when there's a new video. And thank you very, very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.